What, when this happens, when you see this in the headlines, how do you experience that?
I can, you know, I get so as long this has happened a while back, but I still get emotional talking about it, and I say that because it was probably one of the first times I could put my face on that young man's face. I could see myself in his position. I think when I first saw it, I wasn't in disbelief because, again, if anybody knows my background, or if you just go to my website and look, you'll see I was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama. I grew up right in the heart of the civil rights movement down south, and I've seen that before. I've seen it many times. That was the first time seeing it as an adult in a place I wouldn't expect to see it. And I thought to myself, how can this be happening? How can that 9 minutes, you cannot unsee it. It was, it was horrific. And I remember it was over my birthday weekend. And I remember my wife probably gave me the longest hug that she's given me since the day we got married. I mean, she saw the pain in my face. I've never cried so much as a grown man until you see the breath of a person's body and the casualty of the person doing it. Just casual, just sunglasses on top of the head. I'll never get that image out of my head. Mm-hmm. Hand in pocket. That was horrific. And anybody saw anything different than that had their eyes closed. And you just cannot see it. And it brought back so many memories of where I grew up and how I saw people being treated. And when I say people, I meant African Americans being treated by police. I saw that with my own eyes, and then I saw it again and again and again. And when you expect at some point you stop seeing that, and you didn't. And when I saw that day, it's just, God bless that young lady for standing there and videotaping that. And a lot of people are just saying, they gave her so much flack, but there was nothing she could do. Absolutely nothing. Mm. She did exactly what she needed to do, and that was to record it for history.
I've heard from other Black friends of mine who say, when they see these types of events, they're just tired. They're tired. Do you feel the same way? And if so, what kind of expound on that a little bit?
It takes a piece of you, man. When you see it, it just takes Breonna Taylor. It takes a piece of you. Tamir Rice. It takes a piece of you. Eric Garner. It takes a piece of you. Every time you see it, Sandra Bland. It takes a piece of you. You just think, when will people understand that this isn't right? These are things you should not die for. These are things that consistently keep happening over and over and over. And people keep saying the same old, which irritates me more than anything. It's like, why don't you just do what they say? Why don't you just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These things, you should, even if you don't do what they say, you shouldn't die from those acts. Those are not things to die from. Is it something to be locked up for? Yes. Is it something to be maybe handcuffed for? Yes. To die is not a death sentence. And we keep seeing it over and over again. And I think, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because we all know that it could be us. It could be one of us. And I say to my friends, my white friends, you never, ever worry about that. You see that and that's never going to be you. I don't. I couldn't tell you that. Today, I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't tell you that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I always thought it would be me. And I still think it's going to be me. And that's a horrible way to live.
Yeah, what's that like to go through life like that, or to, see a squad car and maybe me thinking, oh, hope I don't get pulled over because I don't want to pay the ticket. Whereas you have perhaps a different feeling.
Yeah. The ticket is nothing to me. I can afford the ticket. it's to me, it's, and I'll tell you this, and this is something you probably don't do. And I've talked to a lot of my friends, a lot of entertainers, a lot of white entertainers. I bet you don't put your wallet in your cup holder when you get in the car. That's the first thing I do when I get in my car. I've been doing it for years because I don't want to have to the cop not see my hand, and I get pulled over. I assume I'm going to get pulled over. That's how bad it is, you know. And most people who know me, been knowing me for a long time. I love nice SUVs. I've driven. You know, this is not. This is okay. This is a little bragging, but you know, Escalade, H3, Range Rover. You know what I mean? 550 Mercedes. You know, SUVs. I love them. I love the rims. I love the lighted tinted windows, and I want my vehicle to stand out just a skosh. You know what I mean? But I know I'm going to get pulled over, and I got pulled over so many times. But I put my wallet right there. When the police pulled me over, and it was a lot, I rolled down all four windows. I turn my dome light on, and I sit there. And I know I'm not getting pulled over for speeding. I know I'm not getting pulled over for running a red light. I know because I don't do that when I'm driving at night. I just don't do it. I know why I'm getting pulled over. And it's the scariest thing in life. Sometimes I call my wife. I have a friend who lives in Vegas. I have a friend who lives in LA that if I'm driving back late at night from, say, Bemidji or central Wisconsin or central Iowa or central North Dakota or South Dakota, I call my friends, so some want to be on the phone with me, you know. And I'm not the only African American entertainer that does that. That drives at night. We call people just so someone can be on the phone. Sometimes it's my wife because I want a recording of what's happening. And I've gotten pulled over when I've had people on the phone, and I tell them I'm getting pulled over. Don't say anything. Just listen. And I do, and I leave the phone there, and sometimes it's nothing, but I've had conversations with cops, and when it was all said and done, the person on the other line going, wow, I didn't even know they could do that. Do whatever they want. It's my word against theirs. That was before body cams. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now they have body cams and stuff, but it's scary, Jay, because I tell you what, when I get in my car and my wife sees me do that all the time, she goes, that's just a habit, isn't it? I go, yeah. I can't, even when her and I just going to a movie or going to the Mall of America, that's the first thing I do. It's so routine for me that I just do it. Mm-hmm. Because I want my hand on the wheel. And when the police walks up to me, I want to be respectful. Even though I know I've had my car searched for no reason, like with dogs. And I tell them, all my friends know I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs ever in my whole entire life. And so I told them, I said, you have at it, man. You can sniff anywhere you want. My lawyer told me, don't ever do that again. He goes, don't you ever do that again. You call me. That's what you do. You let them take you and you call. You don't give them the right to do. They have no right to do that. He said, you don't let them do that. He said, because he said, what happens if someone just plants stuff in your car, Willie? I said, look, I didn't have anything to hide. You don't have to have anything to hide, you know? And not that he was saying about dirty cops or anything like that, but he's just saying that's the world we live in today, man. Mm-hmm. If they want you for something, they'll find you for something. You don't know what that guy's motivation is, you know? So it is. I'm always concerned when I'm driving at night. So I don't hardly anymore now. I really don't. I will stay overnight. I always had a rule. If it was 100 miles or less, I drove home after my show. Now, stay overnight, get up in the morning, drive in broad daylight so I'm around people. You know what I mean? And that's scary. That's sad.
You touched a bit on this, but what experiences have you had when it comes to systemic racism that go beyond law enforcement? It's certainly not just law enforcement.
No, I'm talking everything from every job I think I've ever had. And I can give you a few examples. Like, for instance, even as a comedian, and people don't think this, but it is. It's as an entertainer. When I was doing the club scene, first, like, they will tell you when you go into a comedy club, the club owner always says, "Hey, here's what I want you. Here's what you can't say on stage. You can't say these words. You can't say this. You can't say this. You can't say this." They only said that to black comedians. The white comedians will walk up and say exactly what he just told us not to say. And you be back there going, what?
Mm.
And that's exactly how it worked. I worked in the hospitality industry before I started doing comedy. I've always worked in front office. And I'll tell you a quick story about a gentleman named Dean Anderson. When I was in college, he was a mentor. He owns Holiday Inns and in central Minnesota and in southern Minnesota. And when I was a sophomore in college, he told me, he said, "Willie, after football, you're going to need a career." And this was when I was going to St. Cloud State University. And he said, "See me after you're done." Well, I started seeing him about my sophomore summer of my going into my junior year. And I started working at his hotels in the summertime. This cat taught me the hotel industry. He taught me everything about front of the house, back of the house, the books, everything. He said, if you're going to work in the hotel industry, you need to know everything you need to know about the hotel industry. So he took the time to do that. And right after college, sure enough, I started my career working for him at the Holiday Inn in St. Cloud. And when there was a new hotel chain starting up, it was called the Comfort Inn, they was looking for a manager. And they called Dean and said, "Do you have anybody on your staff that's qualified to run a limited service hotel?" He goes, "I'm a perfect person." And he sent me over there, and sure enough, I got the job just on his recommendation. And I worked for these guys, and I turned this place from just a limited service property to almost a full service property, just from the stuff I learned from Dean how to do. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, this is really quick, but we didn't have no restaurant, right? So I go to Perkins and I work out a deal with Perkins to say, I want to bring teams in to stay, but I can't bring them in to stay unless they have somewhere to eat, because teams at that time would bring one check, and that was for their hotel, their food, and stuff. So I go to Perkins, tell them what I want to do. Then I go to Black Angus, which was a restaurant. It was a dinner place and it was a breakfast place. That's the two places they want to eat. And they can eat what they want. They'll bill them, put it on the hotel charge, and then when they check out, boom. So we didn't have a hotel, but I let them bill their stuff to the hotel so we can pay, and then we would pay. So I explained that to them, and these guys did not understand it. They almost accused me of ripping them off. And their accountant was sitting trying to explain to them, no, it's just money goes here, goes here. That's all it's doing. They said, well, why don't we keep that money? They said, because you don't have a restaurant. he goes, we should get a percentage. But at the end of the day, they didn't, had it been anyone else, just like he said, "Willie, I sit here and do the books for these guys. They own several different companies. There's thousands and upon thousands of dollars that are unaccounted for. You can account for yours and they don't trust you." And to me, that was one of the first time I really truly experienced it at my job. But then when I moved to Minneapolis, after several years of management, I remember accepting the job that I knew the guy who had the job before me and what he got paid, I was more qualified than he was, and they offered me almost 30% less than what he was making. And that was every job I applied for. Every time when I accepted a job, they looked at my qualifications, and I was thinking to myself, every single time I got to go through this, and I have to fight for the extra money that I'm not that I want, but what I'm qualified to make. I've earned it. Here are the awards. Here are the certificates. Here's what I've done. And these guys come from lesser brands, and they was making more money. And he told me, he said, "Don't accept anything less than that." He said, "Willie, this is what they was paying me, and I'm going off to the Marriott now, Sure enough, I sat down with the general manager, and without hesitation, he just said, well, we're not going to pay you that much. I said, well, I'm not going to work for you.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And that's, to me, you don't do that to people. You know, if you're qualified to do the job, and I had the track record to prove it. And to me, it's just, it's plain and simple. You pay people, you know, the value of their worth. And so it always, I've been angry ever since I learned about the 3/5. You know what I mean? The 3/5 compromise. I always think, you know, who does that? Who thought that that was a good idea? And people love to go back to the founding fathers. Maybe that was a founding father that came up with that. His name James
Explain
Wilson.
Explain that one again.
Well, the 3/5 compromise was back when how the southern states would get delegates.
Sure.
The 3/5 compromise was that they would allow the Southerners to count three out of 5 slaves as a person. So the other 2, not a person, just can't count them. Only 3 out of 5. And so that became the 3/5 compromise. I mean, that's written in the Constitution. And I've been mad. I was mad since I learned about 1619, but I was really mad when I learned about that. I mean, it's just like, and you always feel like you're behind the 8 ball all the time, because you always feel like you're not worth what the guy was before you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even though you came there with better qualifications.
So you feel like you have to work 2, 3, 4 times harder?
And that's what we were taught. And I did. I grinded it out, man. I really, honestly, I didn't find my worth until the first hotel job I had that I found my real worth, other than when I started with Holiday Inn, was Mystic Lake. Now you're working at a Native American casino hotel, helping them build their first hotel. I managed, opened, trained, and did everything at that hotel. Mm. And that was the first time I sat in a room and they asked me what salary are you looking for? And I told them, and they didn't blink. And that was the first time I thought, I don't think I asked for enough.
That's your immediate next thought. Crap.
He didn't even say, I think we can do it. He goes, okay. Because they had never had a director of front office operations before. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I mean, that was one of the first jobs. And I thought, I'm never going to take a step backwards from that. And that was next to the last job I think I ever had in the hospitality industry. You know, the next job I got, I took 2 years off after I left there. And then I went to open up my own property, not my own property, but I opened up my own comedy club in St. Cloud and stuff. And then I took a couple of years off, and then I wound up coming back and working in the hospitality industry one more time. But then it was on my own terms. Mm-hmm. You know, I had been to Disney University and became a Disney trainer, and I was not gonna get my worth. And so when they offered me a job at Carlson Companies, offered me a job, I accepted it on my terms, and I left on my terms.
What you talked earlier about, growing up in the South and then coming up to Minnesota to play football at St. Cloud State.
Right.
Talk about your experiences in the South compared to your experiences here in Minnesota in the North when it comes to systemic racism.
Okay, here's the deal, man. This is the part that gets me really emotional, I think, sometimes, because when I lived through segregation, man. I lived through busing. When I was a kid, I used to watch my mother walk with us 2 to 3 miles to downtown Mobile, because she didn't want her kids to see her get humiliated on a bus.
Mm.
I mean, that's how proud she was. She want us to believe that we were going to make a difference in this world. And you can't believe that if people are constantly telling you you're nothing. I mean, we were called the N-word on a regular basis down south every day, no matter where we were walking. Someone would yell out the window or be walking by you and that kind of thing. But my mother would walk to the store, like we would be going down to the store to shop for clothes shopping and stuff. And there's a certain bus that we could catch, and if the black bus was down, you can catch this other bus, but it was, you pretty much know you weren't going to get a seat. There were seats available, but people be sitting there, and then they'll sit their purse down and they'll sit their keys over here, and they'll take up 3-4 seats and not let you sit down, and you can't touch their stuff. You know what I mean? So you knew that. And my mother just didn't want to put us through that. You know what I mean? It hurt me when I saw my father, who worked all of his life, hardworking guy, go to a bank where everybody he worked with banked there. And I remember my dad went in to get a loan, and they was just like, they treated my dad like, it was horrible, man. It was, you're still talking Jim Crow laws. You're still talking redlining, where you couldn't buy property in certain areas. I mean, you can even look for a home. Every parent want their kids that live in a nice neighborhood. Every parent want their kid to go to a good school. Every parent every parent. I'm just saying, every single parent. And all my family ever tried to do, all I ever recall my mother and father talking to us about, and all I recall Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers, Evers, I'm sorry. And all the time I listen to them, and God bless John Lewis, it's just try to get this country to live up to the Constitution. That's all. That's it. Live up to the Constitution, period. As a kid, man, I saw so much that made me so angry. But my mother and father kept us so balanced and tried to explain to us that this is not the way it's always going to be. And I was like, how can it not be, Mom? Every single day. The older I got, the harder it got, you can't go certain places where I grew up. There's parks that you couldn't go to. These were state parks that Black people paid taxes, could not even go to. There were malls that we couldn't go to. There were restaurants that we couldn't go to. There was gas stations that just maybe 2 blocks away from where you would get your normal gas, you can't go to. If you were about to run out, you had to pass that gas station because you can't go there. You know what I mean? And people don't understand that. I mean, I get it, this is the South. But when I left there, and my father convinced me to go to school in the Midwest. And I remember in my high school, when I was playing football, I knew I was going to get a scholarship. I knew I had tons of schools down south, but didn't have a lot of Midwest and northern schools, but got a few bites. But they weren't anywhere. I was like Iowa, Nebraska, so forth and so on, and a couple of liberal arts schools in Wisconsin. But I was like, I didn't know anything about the North. And I remember sitting in my class, my civic class, and this is a true story. It was so sad. And we had brand new books. And I remember the teacher passing out these books. And this is after busing, man. I mean, we got bused to this school.
What year is this, by the way?
This was 1977.
Okay. So you're a senior in
And,
1977?
Yep. And here's the deal, man. They were sitting there passing out books, beginning of the school year. And the teacher told me after they passed out all the new books, these books, I wanted a new book. And he said, these new books are for kids who are going to go to college. He said, there's a chance. He said, Willie, only 1 in 5 of you will go to college. That was African Americans in their class. Only 1 in 5 of you. And he literally looked at me and said, and I don't think I have those 5 in my class. Now, We all went to college. Not only did we go to college, we went. I'm talking Tuskegee. I'm talking, you know what I mean, Howard. I'm talking to Morehouse. I'm talking to Clark College. We all went to good schools. You know, let me just throw in St. Cloud State. But at the end of the day, that was his vision for us, is that we weren't good enough. I mean, we were going to barely get out of high school, and we graduated. I mean, but that's the attitude of the teachers I grew up with. I hear people always talking, oh, I would love to talk to my English teacher from ninth grade. There's not one single teacher. The only person we had that was, I think, gave us some hope was that we had a assistant principal was African American, but he had zero power. Zero. There was not. I mean, all he could do was give you a sympathetic ear, and that was it. He was just lucky to have that job, and he had the principal and all the white teachers had him sandwiched in, and he had no disciplinary powers whatsoever. You know, and so all you did was just battle to get out of school, and without getting in. And we had a couple of riots there because that's when the movie Roots came out, and people start saying things to us that they shouldn't be saying. You know, like, hey, what are you doing at that water fountain? And then a fight broke out. You know, that kind of things. I mean, it was harsh. And then when I came to college at St. Cloud State, I mean, again, you're talking about taking a kid out of an environment and putting them in a totally different environment, and where not so much racism, systemic racism, but it was dormant. You know, it was waiting to come out. I got glimpse of it every once in a while when I would walk around St. Cloud. I was great on campus, but once you get out into the community and just sprawl out just a skosh about 6 to 8 blocks away from the campus, then you got a different look about you. And I was surprised when I first got to college of how sociable everybody was on campus. I mean, I'd never had white friends. And obviously my white friends never had black friends. So it was mutual for both of us. You know what I mean? It was a learning experience for both of us. More of the fact that I had to learn to trust, because all I've ever gotten, like to hang out. If 3 white guys asked me to go somewhere with them, they pretty much I wasn't going to come back. And they're going to say, well, he left. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I was always apprehensive when my friends say, hey, let's go downtown and we want to take you downtown, or we want to take you here. Or, I remember the first time I went home with a friend of mine's out to western Minnesota on the South Dakota border, and they lived on a farm. And I went to bed that night and I was thinking, my God, they're going to keep me. But that's your mindset, you know what I mean? Because you're not used to having that, and it was disturbing, and not having, like I said, and this is the part that is shocking, is that when colleges recruit kids like that, and you go and recruit kids from the Bahamas and from Detroit and Cleveland and Alabama and Florida, and you bring them to central Minnesota, then you should have a staff there ready to assist them. And there was nobody there like that for me. Mm-hmm. So once you left your friends, you were on your own. You couldn't go talk to your friends about how you felt because they had no idea how to respond to you. You know what I mean? Yeah. They didn't have St. Cloud State was not prepared they wanted African-American students, but they weren't doing the things that they needed to do to be prepared when they came. Mm-hmm. So when I got there, I struggled big time because I had no one to lean on, no one to go talk to about being Black and not having any Black friends around, because there were only about 12 to 14 African Americans going to St. Cloud State. You're talking about freshmen, sophomore, junior, upperclassmen, and then they you kind of just stick to yourself. The new groups of people kind of get to know each other. The older group of people don't, because they're leaving. Yeah. So it was a struggle, and the one thing that I swore that I was going to do before I left there was build a coalition that every kid that I helped bring in, I was going to be there for them, so they know they can come and talk to me. You know, don't get so. I got depressed. I got to a point where, you know, I didn't think people were listening to me. You know, they didn't understand me, and then I wouldn't tell them the truth. You know what I mean? You only tell the truth to the person that you trust. You know, and I had a lot of trust issues, a lot of them, and most kids do. You know what I mean? So, but you know, especially African American kids when they come to like a town like St. Cloud, or to you know, or any like even up in Moorhead or wherever, you know, because I've met with so many other kids who were stuck in these, you know, they went to college and they were great football or basketball players. But out when basketball season's over, football season's over, and so forth, what do? You know what I mean? Everybody, all your buddies got their other friends and family, and they go home. And then holidays, I was stuck here, you know, and that was the worst time ever, you know. And I think that living in St. Cloud was really, really hard. I think the people that from the community, as you can see now, they were very, I don't know, very standoffish. I had a hard time trying to fit into that town at one point, you know. But I think a lot of it is, as much as I lived in that town, I had zero troubles. I had no I was a good person, a good athlete. I coached there, so everybody in town knew me. But it was like I said, once you get outside of the town, people who didn't know you, that's how you could feel that undercurrent.
Yeah.
You know, and that was always there. And I always just thought, like, if I can forgive, how can you not even just give me a chance when you don't even have that system up here?
Yeah.
You know, how did you learn to hate like that? How did you learn to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a learned behavior. It is, you know, it's racism it's a learned behavior. It's systemic. It's learned. That's not natural to do that to people. It's not natural to treat people that way. It's not natural to, I mean, I think about everything where I work, when I go to do shows, when I look at companies that I perform for, and I'm out there and there's 400, 500 people out there. And I think to myself, there's 500 people working at this company and there's only 3 African Americans. That's all I can see.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's unusual. That's a Minneapolis company.
Yeah.
How can that be? So you saying there's like 0 qualified, you know, people in that town that you could have hired or whatever? I see that all the time, and it's just everywhere. I see it radio. I see it I go to Timberwolves game. I go to the Vikings game, and I look at the reporters, and I look at the announcers, and I look at everybody who's, you know what I mean, that's working. And then I go up and I go to the food court and I see those people working. I go, well, there they are. You know, when are they going to get down? You know, all these jobs, you know, and I just like, wow. I mean, from the eyes of African Americans, that's what we see, you know, and we just think it should be balanced, it'd be more balanced.